Good day, folks. Welcome to Monitoring and Evaluation Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. I'm so glad that you've joined me today because we're going to be looking at a topic what is participatory monitoring and evaluation. But before we do, I have these ebooks which I'm giving out for free. They are totally free. M&E is free. You don't need to pay for it most of the time. Please download these ebooks if you haven't done so yet. It's talking about one, the logical framework analysis approach, and then the M&E guide for 2020. Now, mind you, folks, I'll be releasing these guides every year, different guides, different versions. So please keep note, keep on the watch. This is your books. Then, how to set up monitoring and evaluation system step by step. This is a course which is running on Udemy. As you can see, it is highly rated. I want you to enroll in this course if you have the time to do so. It is at a heavily discounted price, 87% off. Please do well to enroll in this course if you have the time to. Then, as usual, this video, some of my videos are long. So like this one, I want you to take advantage of the timestamps because you may not want to watch the whole video. So in order for you just to skip certain parts of this video, use the timestamps in the description below. Okay, so what is participatory monitoring and evaluation? Okay, so now guys, when you look at M&E in general, you have people telling you what should be done, okay? But sometimes you discover that stakeholder involvement has been limited. And when we say stakeholder involvement, we're talking about involving the beneficiaries, involving the funders, involving the communities, the line ministries in the planning, implementation of the M&E system. Okay, so the difference here is that in participatory monitoring and evaluation, you're involving all the relevant stakeholders in your planning of the M&E, in the management of your M&E, and in the implementation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you this is best understood when I explain to you the differences between conventional M&E and this participatory M&E. Okay, so if you are hearing this for the first time, this is a good video for you. So let's get started and see the differences one by one. Okay, so with conventional M&E, when you're trying to answer the question of why, it's usually accountability is usually summary judgment about the project to determine if funding continues. Okay, but with participatory M&E, it is really about empowering the local people to initiative, control, and take corrective action. So can you already see what this is all about? In conventional, it's really about a funding issue. Okay, should we fund this program? Should we continue to fund it? That's all it's about. And that is why this is where the problem actually comes in. The people who are implementing these projects would tend to feel that creating an M&E system is a donor requirement. That's where it all begins because of this issue of funding. We need to create this M&E system because funders want to know whether this is a good project. But when it comes to participatory M&E, because you are involving the local people in building the system, you're actually empowering them. You're actually granting them that ownership, okay, and control. And because of that, the M&E system is there as a learning system that's meant to make you grow. And if there are problems, if there are weaknesses, you take corrective action. Okay, so we talked about the issue of accountability. But what about who does this? Conventional M&E, participatory M&E. Well, the conventional, you have external experts. Okay. So in this case, obviously, when it's time for the evaluation, the donor is going to decide who they want to do this evaluation. Okay. So that they are able to determine whether indeed they should continue funding this project. So you have the external experts. These are usually the consultants. These are usually the most experienced guys who come and evaluate the project. But then, how is evaluation done with the participatory M&E? You have the community members, you have the project staff, and the facilitator. Okay. So now, in my view, I think this could be a bit of a weakness, because it's always good to have external experts doing the evaluation. But as you can see in this case, they seem to be aligned here. Or should we actually say these facilitators, are they the external experts as well? Okay, because if that's the case in this participatory monitoring and evaluation, then this is far better than this. You see the point? So now, in my experience, I'll tell you what I've experienced, guys. You have you do an evaluation jointly with all these people, including the facilitator, who, in my view, is the external expert. Okay. So this is very important, because when you get everybody involved in the evaluation, you're going to see that the information you'll get will be much more reliable than what you get when somebody is just coming in with their own independent understanding, with their own independent views, without involving the people who are affected, without involving the stakeholders. So that's why participatory becomes good. So now let's look at the next difference, is on the what. You see, guys, this is why I like participatory M&E. Sorry, I'm already looking like I'm more skewed to PM&E. But if you look at the what are we measuring? You find that under conventional, they'll actually have predetermined indicators of success, principally cost and production output. So these predetermined indicators have been set, obviously, by people at the top. Okay. And that's where there's a huge, huge problem, guys. Big. Because these people at the top, they are probably not in touch with what is exactly happening on the ground. Okay. You see, your intentions may be very good. You may decide to say, okay, I want to bring change to a certain community so that hunger levels reduce. Okay, you have the good intentions, but if you don't fully understand the economic, the cultural, the political barriers that are in that community, you'll find that even when you'll be coming up with these indicators, they won't be really getting the full picture. But with PM&E, the indicators are actually determined by the people who are affected. So what this means is that when you go in to when you plan your project, you're going to depend on, of course, the experts to tell you what, maybe through research, they're going to tell you what is actually happening on the ground. So they're going to even propose indicators. But what you are going to do, if you're making it participatory, you're going to have a workshop. You invite different stakeholders, including the people who are going to be affected by this project. You invite them and then you brainstorm jointly to discover what is the best way to measure these problems that are taking place. So, in the coming up with indicators, we need to have all stakeholders involved. And a lot of material supports that. And it's also good because you want to have buy in from people. Okay, so focus is on scientific, objectively distancing of evaluators from other participants, uniform complex procedures, delayed limited access to results. Okay, so now this is also what I've observed. Okay, it is usually, if you look at the way this is done, they'll use scientific procedures. That is not a bad thing. But the problem is that they are distancing themselves from the different stakeholders, other participants who should play an important role in actually determining what these results actually mean. The analysis is so important. When you get data, make sure that even when doing the analysis, you are doing it in such a manner that the interpretation it will be sound to all different stakeholders. You don't want a situation whereby you collect data, you interpret it in your own way, present it to stakeholders, and there's mixed feelings. It's usually best if everybody plays a role in the interpretation. So now the self-evaluation, according to the in participatory M&E, simple methods adapted to local culture, open, immediate sharing of results through local involvement in evaluation. Okay, so now the thing is that if you've noticed the two, the difference is that both are, one is not involving stakeholders, the other is. But whether it should be scientific or not is up to the organization to decide. But I personally believe that using scientific methods is a good thing because the interpretation is further enriched. So you have to use scientific methods and involve the people in the interpretation of these results. Okay, then finally, when is this M&E done? Okay, and as you can see, this is where I got this information from, just there, I've cited. Okay, so when is this M&E done? Okay, usually conventional, it's done midterm and at completion stage. I've seen this a lot, and I agree with this. But with the PM&E, it is done any assessment for program improvement, measuring of monitoring and evaluation, hence frequent small evaluations. Okay, so that's the difference. So now, if you've noticed that with the conventional, when they do the evaluation, they can do it halfway through or at the end of the program. But with this one, it's saying that it is done frequently, not so. But at with a small, they are not big evaluations, but they are small. Okay, so now if you've noticed, generally participatory M&E, in my view, is the better way to go. Of course, there are disadvantages. Okay, and I would like to talk about also what we've just read here. I personally feel that if you have too many evaluations, it may be costly in the long run. So that's why perhaps having maybe two could be the way to go. But in essence, at the end of the day, what we are saying is that people should get involved, especially the stakeholders, because those are the ones who are affected by this project and who also have a say and who can also affect the project, you see. So it's important to involve these people. So a process through which stakeholders at various levels engage in monitoring or evaluating a particular project, program, policy, share control over the content, the process, and the results of the M&E activity, and engage in taking or identifying corrective actions. So, in summary, that's the definition of participatory M&E. So, it is so important that the process is made more participatory. All right. It shouldn't be a top down approach where you, as the donor, define what should be collected, how it should be collected, how it should be reported, what how it should be analyzed, and things like that. But it should be a bottom up approach whereby you're involving the people in the communities, so that you're able to understand everything holistically. That way, it improves even the way you do your M&E. Okay, so now these are the steps in undertaking participatory monitoring and evaluation. Okay, so the first step is to engage the stakeholders. All right, so it's usually important to do a stakeholder mapping. First, identify the stakeholders. When you've identified the stakeholders, you engage them. Okay, so you can go to them. If it's the government, the policy makers, you go to the representatives in the government and find out their interests in this project, in this program. Invite them. Invite community members who will be affected by this project and who can also affect your project. Invite them. Talk to them that we have an interest to build change in this community, but we need your help in coming up with a system that will collect, analyze, and report on reliable data. So now, most of the time, when you engage these people, because they are not really the experts, okay? But you probably are the expert. So the next stage is to build stakeholder capacity. And the only way to do this is to hold a meeting, okay? Because it won't be cost effective for you to go at different points in time, at different places. Information won't be consumed at the same time. So you have to bring them together. So when you bring them together, you have a workshop on monitoring and evaluation, obviously, but this is your opportunity to jointly come up with an M&D system for the project. Okay, so first of all, you give them the information, the basics of M&D, talk, 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 talk. Then jointly you come up with the indicators that you need to monitor and evaluate. So that is what brings me to step 3. You have to agree, what are you going to monitor and evaluate. Of course, the project, if you've noticed, the project should have a log frame. Okay, but what you are doing in this particular case, there are two things. You could be bringing these stakeholders together to develop a new project, or the project is already running, but then you are bringing these stakeholders together to either add indicators or just verify whether the indicators in the current project are sound. So once you do that, you are getting people involved, and the chances of success of implementing such a system are high, because everybody in that room, the people you invite, are going to commit to bringing change, to implementing a system that counts. So after you agree, then the normal steps of M&E come into play, whereby you develop an M&E system, you have the tools developed, you commit a budget to running these activities, all the steps come in, and then everything is assumed to be working smoothly at a given point in time. Okay, so that was all I had today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this training. So, in case you want to get in touch with me, simply write to my email. It's in the description below so that we interact with each other. I can help you with your personal um, problems, perhaps even your organization. If they want to engage us, please feel free to do so. So at this point in time, I want to say bye. I've been your host, Coach Alexander, and see you on the other side. Bye.